Greetings and salutations, guys. I'm here with my review of Andor Season 2, Episodes 4 through 6, the second arc of the season that all debuted together. Well, when you're watching this, I'm recording it a couple weeks beforehand. And this is when we really get to see how this season is going to function with these year-long jumps and the gaps in between. And does it feel wonky? Does it work? And I'd say that overall, first of all, I thought these 3 episodes were great. I thought that there was so much great Andor stuff in these episodes. Really great character work, really great stuff that was sort of dealing with what this show does best as far as the gray areas and the compromises and characters making mistakes and the danger and the intrigue. It was all top notch. I did think that we saw some of the issues with the structure and the fact that we're not getting full seasons for these different story arcs like it once could have been. I think that we saw some storylines kind of use this time jump better than others. Well, the one that I think used it really well is everything with Cyril. And jumping in with him working on Gorman and it all kind of being a mystery to us, right? It's like we can figure he's there because of Miro. Like she manipulated things to have him there. But we're trying to kind of figure out how much does he know? What is happening? When he's acting sympathetic about the Gorman, is it because he has any real sympathy? Is it because he is just completely tricking them because he's in on a plan with Miro? Is it because he has real sympathy, but Miro knew he would and she's manipulating him? So I liked that. I like kind of having to try to figure that out for a little bit. It turns out he is completely in on the plan to a point because he doesn't know the full plan. He knows that they're supposed to kind of incite this revolution and that he is supposed to be this double agent, but he doesn't seem to know about the whole mining part of it and where it's actually leading. Well, the genocide part, that part. Cyril's a great character. He's just sort of fascinating, the sort of smarminess of him, the desperation of him to be important. There's just something really compelling and interesting about that character in that regard. And of course, you couldn't help but wonder, even after we learned, okay, no, this is the plan. He's supposed to get in with these people to subvert them from within or, manipulate them from within. Then, of course, you have to wonder, but is he going to actually start to be to find sympathy with them, to start to see their side of things? Maybe that still could happen, but right now it sure ain't. I mean, when he had that line to Miro about this might be the best day of my life, or is it okay if this is the best day of my life? It's like, oh, no. Right now, again, I've talked about how with Miro, it's like they just do such a good job of immersing you with these people and these terrible people, but seeing their side of things. And so, yeah, he's very excited to be doing this and to be using these poor people for purposes that are way worse than he knows. Now, if he found out the truth, would that be a bridge too far for him? I guess that's a question, right? I feel like he's such a weak-willed character that even if it was, he would mask that. If she told him, actually, we're going to probably kill all these people because we want to mine this stuff and that it'll just destroy their planet, even if at his core, he knew that was terrible, I think he wouldn't do anything about it. But maybe we'll see. I'm interested to find out as we jump ahead another year in the next storyline, how that'll progress. So yeah, that was all really good stuff. And I thought that the time jump really worked well there. Places the time jump I thought hurt were a couple of the other storylines. First and foremost, we've got Bix and Cassian, and there's so much weight put on what happened with this young Imperial that Cassian killed. It is literally a person that she is in her nightmares seeing dead. And at first, I don't know about you, I was confused. I was like, okay, I recognize Gorst, but who is this other guy that is in this dream? Should I be remembering him? Turns out, no, he was this character that appeared off screen. And it just really felt like, oh, there's a version of this season that was, a version of these 3 episodes that was a full season where we would have seen that story and we would have seen all that lead up and we've gotten a lot more to it. I also think Bix's drug addiction, probably would have been done a little more slowly and, sort of build up to that, but they have to make everything really tight here. And not to say it's bad, it just, you do feel, okay, we've got to cram a lot in here and we've got to give you a lot of exposition because we're jumping ahead. And so I'll get back to other stuff that I loved about the Bix and Cassian storyline in these 3 episodes, but I did think that, yeah, I wish we could have had the actual time with that setup. And then the storyline where I think it hurt the most is Vel and Cinta, simply because they were already kind of third tier supporting characters. There's kind of, the different ones we see more of. And their love story, unfortunately, we only got little glimpses of it previously. And then they have this big emotional scene where Cinta's apologizing and talking about mistakes made. And it's like, well, I don't know what you're talking about, really. I didn't get to see any of this play out. And it's a shame because I think those are cool characters and I would have been, glad to see more of that storyline. Then we got to talk about the death of Cinta and the fact that I'm very curious what's going to happen when this episode airs, just as far as, all right, I'm going to name drop some TV shows that I guess I'm giving pseudo spoilers for from years ago. But they've been out for years. As someone who was covering both The 100 and Person of Interest in 2016, this show's going to bring up a lot of, I think, bad memories of sort of the bury your gays trope and, dead lesbian trope, and a lot of things about what happens when you have like one prominent gay couple on a TV show, what sort of feels inevitable in a lot of these shows where one of them dies. And I understand nothing exists in a vacuum. It doesn't exist in a vacuum as far as on this show, which is plenty of loss and death. So it's not like they're singling out the gay characters here, but also it doesn't exist in a vacuum as far as the television landscape. And also the fact that it was exactly the trope, because this is the fourth genre show that I've loved and watched, where one half of a lesbian couple is shot and killed by a bullet, or in this case, a blaster bolt, not meant for her. It's the weirdest thing. Even though I have a feeling, I bet Tony Gilroy has never watched Buffy or The 100 or Person of Interest. I don't think there was any like malicious, like, I'm going to do that too. But it's weird. You'd think someone might bring it up. Maybe there's a different way to do this. And I also think, it just hurt because they did the thing of like Cinta and Vel are getting back together, even though we didn't spend that much time with them anyway. And then one of them does die right after. Again, in its totality, though, it makes sense in the world of Andor. And I thought that the scene after that, Faye Marseille was great in that scene where she kind of is putting on her hardened warrior mask. And she has this speech to the guy who accidentally ended up killing Cinta about, that you're nothing, how great she was, and that you're sort of this pathetic guy that's going to have to live with this and make up for this forever. I thought that was really well played and it was powerful. But it was kind of that 1-2 punch of feeling like, well, we didn't get as much time with these characters as we should have anyway. And then the fact that she died in the same way. I do feel bad. I think this will hit hard for some people who had to sort of go through this exact scenario with multiple characters that they loved. Let's move on to some other stories, though, because there is plenty to talk about here. Look, the topicality of this show. I mean, this season, airing when it is, there is a lot going on here as far as everything about this authoritarian regime and how they operate, and the fact that we had already set up in the premiere that they are going to use the media to turn people against a group that they don't like in order to get their way and to make people think it's not so bad if bad things happen to those people. And here we had Cyril's mom mentioned basically because she's ranting about the Gorman. And it's funny that it's like, oh, so this is like the Star Wars version of Fox News is what she's watching. Very interesting. Media in general is interesting here because we also had Good Morning Coruscant. I know people always bristle also about how much should Star Wars feel like our real life. And it came up with Skeleton Crew and the fact that planet looked like suburban America. Even though they kind of had a plot reason for that. So stuff here like the corner market that Bix and Cassian go into, it looks very, very similar to sort of any bodega that we have. Is that too much? I'm okay with it. It's just always sort of that fine line. But Good Morning Coruscant I thought was fun. And it also evoked the Star Wars Holiday Special. So I did enjoy that about it. The sort of gaudiness. Looked like some of the shows within the shows on the Holiday Special, much less the Holiday Special itself. It also kind of evoked the Hunger Games, but there is definitely some already some correlation there as far as like the capital and people who would buy into Coruscant and buy into the Empire and say, hey, everything's going great for me, and this is also what we're projecting because the Empire wants to project that everything's great. But yeah, it is funny to see those little glimpses. Speaking of media, I wanted to mention a couple of ways these episodes opened I thought were really clever. We had episode 4 open with Cyril walking to work, but while he's walking to work, we're hearing the conversation he's going to have with his mom when he gets to work. I just thought that was cool storytelling. It was a nice way to kind of reintroduce us, in this year jump to what Cyril's life is, have this important conversation that's going to disorient us as we're trying to figure out the new normal for Cyril and what's happening here. And then I thought it was great when episode 5 began with the Andor logo and the music distortion and the radio tuning. And it turns out that's Kalea messing with tuning the radio. But I think, a fun little way to not get meta exactly, but sort of, I don't know, mess with our perception of how these shows go. And I think that, there's definitely on these series room to do things in different ways. Andor's already doing things in very distinct different ways. So I enjoyed some of the storytelling aspects that they used here. Also the guards at Cyril's office were watching a pod race. That was cool. Lots of Tarkin mentions and lots of Palpatine mentions. Again, I don't expect either character to show up, especially Tarkin, but we got the return of a legacy character here, and it was disorienting, which was the recasting of Bail Organa. Benjamin Bratt's great, but this was a bummer. Jimmy Smits has been playing this role now since, since Attack of the Clones. I almost said Revenge of the Sith. And he's been playing it a lot in recent years. He was in Rogue One. This season is leading into Rogue One. He's in that movie playing that role. He was in Obi-Wan a couple years ago. So to see this recast, it just felt so strange. And I'm not against people being recast in Star Wars in general. Like, I'm one of those people who says if they're going to keep using like Luke in the Mandalorian era, just recast him. It's weird with the digital de-aging and the AI voice and all of it. I don't like it. Just recast him. And I think that in Solo, having actors, play slightly younger Han and Lando was fine. If the actor is no longer the right age to play, it makes sense. But Jimmy Smits, of course, is still very much the right age. He's, it's 20 years since Revenge of the Sith came out, and in Andor timeline, these episodes were taking place like 17 years later after Revenge of the Sith. So totally would have worked. The reason was scheduling, but it is just kind of a bummer, right? And it's funny too. I was researching and I was like, what was he filming? He was filming a show on CBS called East New York. And if you're like me, you might not know what East New York was. It was a short-lived show, a procedural, because it's CBS, and it aired for one season from 2022 to 2023. Again, Andor, this season had been in works for a long time. It started shooting before the strikes, when that show would have still been filming. But it just sucks that the timing didn't work, and I think it sucks even more that it's for a forgotten show. Like, it doesn't even feel like, well, he had to make this choice between these two great projects. I know it doesn't matter. Look, actors work when they work, and it's not his fault or anyone's fault that he took a job that was, a commitment, and then Andor wanted him, and they couldn't get him because he was shooting on, a different country back in America. He's shooting this show for CBS, but it just sucks. It sucks that he's not in this, and especially to have the jump from Obi-Wan where it is him, Rogue One it is him, and it's someone else in this episode. I assume we're going to see more of him. He always felt like a character who had to be in this season, just knowing Bail Organa's role in the rebellion and relationship with Mon Mothma. It would have been weird if we didn't see him, and it seemed a no-brainer it would be Jimmy Smits because he's keeps coming back, but not this time. So it is what it is, but I think it's going to take some getting used to, unfortunately, which isn't fair to Benjamin Bratt either, by the way, who's a really good actor. But yeah, we'll have to deal with it. Stuff with Bix, yeah. Again, I wish they could have taken more time with it. Like, the fact that the drug addiction and whatnot felt like the stuff that, in a different reality where this is a full season, we could have kind of maybe a slower build to. But I like that they were kind of dealing head on here with, man, the trauma this character has gone through. And I mentioned last week that is it too much trauma as far as on a writing side? Like, if this character is just the character who just, it's misery happens to her, terrible things happen to her. But look, all going back to Gorst, I mean, yeah, that'll stick with you. They established so well that what he was doing to her was so terrible. So she's still having nightmares about that. And that was before the freaking attempted rape in the last week's episode. Yeah, Bix needed a win, and she got one, especially after what happened to Cinta. It was great to get those final scenes where, yeah, she caught up to Gorst and put him into that machine, and he got to have that misery put upon him. Very satisfying. She needed that win, but she and Cassian needed it together, and I liked that he was there helping her in that moment. She did it herself, but then he was there for the assist. And hopefully this means we can kind of go in a different direction with Bix in the remaining episodes. Though where she is during Rogue One is a question mark that might not have a happy answer. But even if she kind of goes out fighting, it's better than sort of what she was having to deal with up till now. Luthen, there was some really interesting stuff with him here. Again, maybe rushed through because it was all in one episode, but it's interesting to see Luthen kind of becoming this almost weird version of the Jedi who are not a part of this show. And what I mean is, Luthen's whole thing is kind of a no attachments thing almost. I mean, he's so dedicated to the cause. And we saw almost every character that deals with him having the same issue, which is you're not thinking about my important relationships and the connections I have that make me want to keep on fighting. So for Bix and Cassian, it's like we care about each other, we want to be together and working as a team, and you're not really thinking about that. And Cinta and Vel, same thing. We want to be together. We're kind of having to demand this because of the way you're assigning us out. And then Mon Mothma saying, hey, I love my cousin, I love Vel, and you seem so flippant about that. Don't you realize that these are important people? So at the same time, we see Luthen have that moment where he's kind of like screaming about how everything's becoming too much for him as far as like all the communications and the secrets, and he's sort of losing track of it all, or it's just becoming overwhelming to him. So again, another character that we kind of expect is not going to make it to the end of the series. But I like sort of seeing that, yeah, he's a career rebel, but it starts to add up. And it starts to add up with the people who work with him, but it's also starting to add up for him as a character. And then I can't believe I didn't mention already the sequence at the party and Clea having to get that bug out. Wonderfully tense. The fact as everyone's getting closer to them, Krennic and that group are getting closer and closer. Her using the fact that Krennic and Mon Mothma are having this big fight in front of everyone, kind of being really sardonic towards each other as cover. Her recruiting poor Jung. I shouldn't say that about a guy who was already just a member of the Empire, but he in that sequence was very sort of caught unaware, and now he had to protect himself by helping her. Very well done, the tension of that intercutting with what was happening, the heist on Gorman, the manufactured heist, the heist that they don't know that they were manipulated to be in. And the more I'm talking, the more I'm realizing there's a lot to talk about here, because I also liked the look at the revolutionaries on Gorman and the fact that they are well-meaning, but they are in over their head. They don't know what they're doing. They're not prepared for this. And even the debate that Cassian and Luthen had, which is, well, do we help these people? And Cassian saying, I don't think we should, because they're not ready, they're too dangerous, they're making bad calls. And Luthen saying we should because they have money and influence, and that's important. And maybe Luthen, maybe he might be right another time, but he's absolutely wrong in this time, because we know something he doesn't, that the Empire is behind all this. The Empire is pushing these revolutionaries because they want them to kind of help with this story and with the backlash and everything that they want to happen. They want them to make bad decisions in the long run. So yeah, really interesting and complex stuff here. And then we got Saw Gerrera coming back, and seeing him and his even more extreme version of rebellion, which made the fact that he ordered Will to be killed feel very plausible. Now, ultimately, that's not what happened. Of course, he knew that this other guy was, sending messages out and shot him instead. But yeah, that Saw is an interesting character for me because I didn't like him in Rogue One. I love Rogue One, but I thought that character kind of felt like all over the place, and I didn't really connect to him, and the stuff with him and Jin, there just wasn't enough there. But I'm liking this. The sort of fact that, like a lot of Star Wars media, like the way that Clone Wars helped kind of improve facets of Anakin's turn that weren't there in Revenge of the Sith, they can maybe do that with Saw here and show him that he's out there and he's off and he can be very dangerous and erratic. But he's not as far gone as we saw him in Rogue One. He's also physically still okay. He is not all, bionic and having a lot of mechanical limbs and the breathing. So we can only guess that this device, which seems to be some sort of explosive, something bad's probably going to happen with this device or a similar device that will lead him to be the Saw that we saw in that film. But I also liked how kind of Will is now dragged into this weirdness, and maybe Hill has him. We're talking about, will Cyril, kind of join the cause of the rebels on Gorman? Probably not, but Will seems more possibly to kind of go all in with the Saw extremists, the extremist rebels. And they had that sequence where they were kind of getting high. It seemed, if I was following this correctly, they're kind of getting high off the fumes of this explosive doomsday device. That was fun and twisted and weird in a lot of great ways. I liked it a lot. And Saw refers to like what the bomb, or I guess maybe the fumes, has his sister, which is, I think, works on two levels that are great, which is on one level, it's crazy Saw. But if you know the Clone Wars, if you watched that show and you saw Saw's introduction on that animated series, you know that he had a sister who died in battle. And so there's kind of a nice tragic underlying thing there too when he mentions his sister, that he's projecting in his sort of drugged out mania maybe onto this thing, the sister he once lost. I thought that was nice. And for someone like me who watched the Clone Wars, it was a nice extra poignant moment. I don't think you need that moment to still appreciate what's going on there and the weirdness of it all. So lots of great stuff. Like I said, there is some issues that I think you innately feel over the 1 year time jump, and the fact that they're cramming into 3 episodes so much and they have to explain so much that happened off camera. And Cinta's death, is complicated to say the least, both in the media landscape, but also the fact that we didn't get enough time with her and Vel to make that have the impact I think it could have had. But overall, yeah, really liked where they're going with all this. So intrigued by the Cyril storyline. So glad Bix got her revenge here, and hopefully is going to go into a better place going forward. We'll see. Excited to see what happens in the rest of the season. That recasting of Bail Organa, I'll have to get over it. It happens. Things happen. Scheduling happens, but even in Star Wars, guys, they can't get everyone they want. All right, guys, if you can like and subscribe, that'd be wonderful. Thanks a lot. Take care.